that doesn't mean the character is trans. But for some reason, anybody that decides to dabble in the opposite gender's clothing is...
Is this, like, cis erasure? Is that why you're mad? Vivian was ours. Vivian was one of the cis. And then they took her from us. I mean him. I mean, oh no! God, we lost Vivian! Basically, Mario has so many spin-offs. You know how Homer Simpson has had like literally every job? Well, there's like so many different kinds of Mario games. Mario can play golf. He can play tennis. He can play football. Mario can race in a Mario Kart with other karting Mario-esque characters. So there's a lot of different Marios. And Paper Mario is basically like the RPG games. And there's two Paper Marios for 64. The second one of which is now being released as a remake on Nintendo Switch. And that's what you see before you.
Folded into a paper plate.
Now, obviously, kind of just wholesome family entertainment. Not stuff that you would think was controversial in any way.
Oh, what can't this guy do? Can you pin him? Rock Hawk, get him! Oh.
Still doesn't look controversial yet.
On.
It's coming, I'm sure.
How about you, Three Shadows? Oh. Well, that's also a no.
So, the Three Shadows, one of the three, is Vivian, as you see before you, this character here, who eventually joins your team. And Vivian is a very powerful character, and certainly a beloved character in the Mario canon, and now the center of a very large controversy on the weird parts of the internet.
Oh, Smorg? Anyone? No, he's even got friends with him? How do we get this guy on our side? Wait, what am I saying? At this rate, I might just start rooting for the hero. Mario's making his way across the world, chasing down baddies and...
Now, I know you're watching this trailer and you're like, when is the controversy about to start? And you're right, I didn't see anything in the trailer that looked remotely controversial or quote-unquote woke worth of an analysis, but I suppose we should see. So this says Nintendo is pushing trans ideology. Uh-oh. It's happening, everyone.
Paper Mario The Thousand-Year Door comes out tomorrow, and it is making headlines today. Thought we would take a look at some of the things going on with this game. Kotaku's celebrating, certainly. But Paper Mario The Thousand-Year Door. Loved game. People dig these Paper Mario games. That's why they still make them. There was one that came out on the Switch.
Okay, cool commentary. Just gonna speed this up a bit.
I think 2 years ago. Didn't care for that one, to be honest. And I've actually played all of them, but this one. This is the only one I haven't played, and I hear it's really good, and I was looking forward to playing it until all of the strange things that were starting to be leaked on this game.
So if you haven't been following all the controversies that come up in the section of the internet where people don't have real forms of oppression, where they want to do oppression simulator, and they basically talk about how their lives are being ruined by strange things that you wouldn't think actually concern grown adults, but stuff like titty skin on Stellar Blade on an alternative costume being slightly covered up, 25% less titty skin, Yatsuke being a black samurai and a real historical figure, but simply being a black man as a playable character in a video game has pissed off a lot of the racists on the internet, and now the latest one is this, where it's like, I haven't heard any of this news that's about to be brought up. It's always like, well, until we learned about all the wokeness leaks, and until all the woke outrage began. It's always the woke outrage that y'all create, right? You wouldn't hear about it. No one would go off all day about how X-Men apparently has suddenly gone woke and is pushing this idea of, don't do eugenics. That's what the hell? Where did that come from? And it's like, did y'all not watch the original X-Men cartoon? Is that what's upsetting you here?
It my way, and I saw that they were changing scenes. Like, there's one scene in particular that I did a video on a few weeks ago. There's a scene where a bunch of Goombas catcall some other Goomba girl, and that's been changed. Some people tell me that they actually changed that in the English version. They don't do that in the Japanese version, so I'm not sure what to believe there, to be honest. But
why do you care? It would be my question. You've never played the game. You've heard it's really good. You could play the original version right now if you wanted. No changes whatsoever. You can go play the N64 version. There's emulators. There's even a version of it for sale on the Nintendo Switch store. You could go enjoy the classic if you're worried about any of this. I still don't see, like, did that really ruin your gaming experience? There's this one moment where, like, you know, Mario's walking and there's like these Goombas, and one of the Goombas is like, hey honey or something, and then you keep walking, like that. They took out that little word bubble, and that's enough to get outraged.
But this time they're outright changing something to make it seem a little bit more friendly for the LGBTQ plus community.
Oh shit.
So here's something that I just found out about yesterday, and that's a scene in Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door involving this ghost Vivian. Okay, I don't know anything about Vivian. Never played this game. But I hear that it's actually kind of ambiguous. So if you follow anime...
Okay, let's go to the official MarioWiki.com, all right? The Super Mario Wiki, so no one can say I'm choosing biased sources here. I'm with Mario all the way. Today, sis, I'm going to punish you. You hear me? Says Vivian in Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. Vivian is a major character in Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, and it's a Nintendo Switch remake. She originally worked as a member of the villainous Three Shadows alongside her sisters, Beldam and Marilyn. Later, Vivian defects from the Three Shadows and joins Mario as his fifth party member. She's consistently put down by her older sister, Beldam, and has had a poor relationship with both her sisters for quite some time when Mario meets her. Although she suffers from an inferiority complex through the events of the game, she learns to respect herself as she travels with Mario. In the original Japanese version of the game, in some translation, Vivian is inconsistently depicted as either a trans woman or a male-identifying crossdresser. However, due to the age rating of localizers we're aiming at and translating Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, this is lost in the English version, and she is described with only feminine pronouns. The English version of the game's remake was changed to depict Vivian as trans. That's where we're at. This is bad because ideology is something. I don't even know how you do this one. I don't know how this is something that you can take time out of your day to be mad about, upset about, or concerned about even. Again, we're talking about deep lore. I feel like this is deep lore. We're cutting into some pretty deep lore. And yeah, I noticed people in the chat talking about Birdo. Really great example of, again, why would people really want to get upset if the corporation that owns the intellectual property rights, I might add, by the way. I mean, you could always create your own Paper Mario if you wanted, but the people who own the intellectual copyright to this character have said, yes, canonically, we're going to announce that this character is trans. This is a trans woman, canonically. Okay. How does that affect your gameplay? How does that affect your enjoyment? Has that changed the storyline at all? It hasn't. Oh, so like the same? You get the same experience as before?
Manga. A good example of this would be if you've ever seen Naruto. One of the first villains that they fight, one of the characters is like a femboy. There's a lot of very in-between characters and a lot of stuff over there.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean the character is trans. But for some reason, anybody that decides to dabble in the opposite gender's clothing is...
Is this, like, cis erasure? Is that why you're mad? Vivian was ours. Vivian was one of the cis. And then they took her from us. I mean him. I mean, oh no! God, we lost Vivian!
Trans now. There is no femboy, which apparently is what this character is supposed to be. It's like a feminine guy. Oh, Jonas J. Campbell is saying that the character was originally a girl. I'm not sure. But this is the translation that we have here in the new remake. Truth is...
The truth is, it took me a while to realize I was their sister, not their brother. Now their usual bullying feels heavier. Wow, you ruined my adventure of 2D living animated Mario characters in the RPG land trying to save the universe. I can't enjoy it anymore.
It took me a while to realize I was their sister, not their brother. Now they're usually...
Yeah, I know, and like the rest of you, cute, adorable, very, very neat. But it's like, you know how there's that lesbian kiss in the Buzz Lightyear film, and it's not even like the lesbian characters, like it's a pair of mums, okay? Yes, some kids have two mummies, and because they represent two mummies in that movie, then it's part of the agenda. Because again, for people whose existence has not been normalized, broadly speaking, by society that tries to oppress them, their very existence feels political to people who are outside of that group, right? If you happen to be cis, white, straight, all the things, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, yeah, you are a heterosexual cis straight male in this game or in this movie or in this book or in this song, there's going to be a character who is gay, but that there's no messaging. There's no you should be gay. Hey, you want to be gay? You should be gay. That none of that. They just exist. Like literally in Buzz Lightyear, the characters just exist. There is a peck and that's it. But it's otherwise these are just human beings who exist in the storyline. Otherwise, it's not to distract you. It's not to push some kind of agenda. It's not at all to be like, hey, by the way, every single woman should become a lesbian, and if you don't, you're not part of the cool guys, the woke agenda.
Now their usual bullying feels heavier. Now, this is not what the character actually says. This is localizers fucking around again. We actually have the translation thanks to Hacker Girl.
You're such evil nerds. You fucking nerds.
So what we did here is we looked at the original and we went for the translation, and apparently some of it has been mistranslated, all right?
And sharing this. So the original Japanese text right here, if you translate it, says a former member of the Shadow Trio. He may look like a girl, but he's actually a boy. And then the original English from the original game said one of the Shadow Sirens, Vivian, suffers from a bit of an inferiority complex. So pretty far from what they put in there now. So I'm guessing the character is some kind of cross-dresser, something like that. I don't know.
Is that okay? Is that allowed? Or is that too much too? Is that part of the woke agenda? If you normalize cross-dressing, you know, like people who are cis but just want to dress up in other clothing, is that super woke? Or I guess that's better as long as they're cis.
What I do know is it's ambiguous, but the localizers for the English version, Nintendo of America, decided that they were going to go ahead and make assumptions for everybody. And now you've got Kotaku making articles about how great this is. People posting stuff like this saying, oh my God, we won so hard. This is what is apparently an accurate translation of who this character is. One of Mario's partners introduced in Paper Mario, The Thousand-Year Door, a cute boy wielding fire magic who was once part of a group of enemies known as the Shadow Trio. English, it's Vivian from the last Paper Mario adventure. She was a great friend.
I mean, also based on the way they had portrayed Vivian, I remember when I played this when I was younger, I never assumed that this was a cross-dressing boy. I thought it was a feminine character. Unmute. Well, what do I do now? My sisters will be back any minute now. Hey, wait just a second. What's your name anyway? Won't you tell me? What? I can't hear you. Your name was stolen. I see. Wait, no it doesn't. Your name was stolen. That's absolutely crazy. You whiz, you have way worse problems than I do. And you were worried about that the whole time? Alright, that's it. I'm gonna help you get back your name and your body and your friends. Hey, that's okay, don't worry about my problems. I'm not sure I really want to stay with my sisters anymore. Anyway. And I feel like I need to repay your earlier kindness. It's the right thing to do. So, in your universe, was that moment gay? This is the original. This is the classic, okay? This is the OG. This is before anything was changed, before wokeness destroyed society. This is pre the Great Wokening, that little moment right there. So was that a cross-dressing boy who kissed Mario? Is that worth getting mad about? Vivian has joined your party. Vivian's abilities. You can make Vivian pull Mario into the shadows, where they can hide. They, pronouns, fucking modern day California shit. But this was before wokeness. How would they use pronouns back then? This was before we had pronouns. But they're actually really well informed from all that flying and eavesdropping. With my power, you can listen to what they're saying. So in addition to villagers, you can listen to local birds. That's the least I could do with my powers. I just, like, how do you find the time? There's so much to do.
And once she split from her sisters. So here's a meme right here. Over in America, they make all of this trans.
Right, but like you're not okay with any of it, right? Again, if it's like, oh, well, my problem here, okay, is that this is femboy erasure. Like, that's what this really comes down to. This for the right, for the chuds, this is where they're positioning themselves. So, okay, you think this is femboy erasure, that this was a cis boy, but a femboy, and that was, you know, that's really, really controversial, and now they've changed that character to being trans. But I would suggest, or like, I'm going to assume, you're not okay with any of these groups, right? Like, any of this, if there was a character in the game that was a gender bender, well, I'm pretty sure at that point you'd be like, woke, this is woke indoctrination, woke ideology.
We have to look at the original translations of the word, all right? Former member of the Shadow Trio looks like a girl, but is actually a boy. Yeah, in Spanish it's pretty good. En realidad es un chico. The Spanish version had it right. So did the German, the French. Mais en fait, c'est un garçon. Garçon. Ah, j'accuse.
I don't know. Let me know what you think. Is Nintendo...
How do they get views? I mean, this shit, again, the production value, as you can tell, is next to none, right? And you don't really need to have any production value. You just need to farm outrage. It gets tons of views. This is a channel with almost 500,000 subs. Yellow Fash, this one has 23,000 views as of a day ago. I mean, that's not great for 500,000 subs, but still pretty wild that it's like something so ridiculous. It's something that anyone on the surface would be like, what the hell?
Ahoy, folks! Tris here with a quick update on Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. Now that reviews for the game have dropped, all sorts of details are coming out about the game in the days before its release. One of the most heavily discussed details of the game is Vivian, specifically her gender. The original GameCube version and its various localizations sparked many debates over the last 2 decades about whether Vivian was a trans woman or not. The original Japanese version of the game, as well as several localizations, indicated...
Oh, it's true, Lost. Yeah, I think they're probably still going to buy and play it. And oh, I have to issue a correction. I fucked up. I said that it was a sequel to the N64 version, but it was not released on the N64. It was on the GameCube. That's true. And that's an important point to point out, because I think one of the neatest things about the Thousand-Year Door was seeing the amount of characters, even in 2D, that they could have on screen at any given time with the power of the GameCube compared to the 64. You'd be just like, whoa, that's pretty wild. It looked like a living 2D cartoon.
That she was trans, but in English and other languages, this was omitted. And we finally have our answer now. Based on a screenshot uploaded by My Nintendo News for their review, we can see this line of dialogue from Vivian. Truth is, it took me a while to realize I was their sister, not their brother. Now their usual bullying feels
Adorable.
heavier. And there we have it, folks. It's now officially confirmed by Vivian herself. She is a trans woman. Nintendo really did it, and I couldn't be happier about it. This kind of representation is big, and I know many people are going to be happy to see Vivian's story arc in this game. Plus, hey, battles against Beldum now mean we get to really fight a transphobe. But what do you guys think? Are you happy we finally...
Based. That's how you should respond to this. And also, if you're like, I just don't want to play my games with all the politics, cool. You don't have to. Like I said before, you can play the original version any day you want. Go out. Be normal, please. Gentlemen, be normal. Why are you doing this? Leonard McDonald, thank you for the $2. Well, you're transforming into different things. I mean, their anger is. And Badash, 29 for the $2. Thank you. Make Bowsette and the other Ets Canon. I am for any and all representation in video games and anything that basically makes chuds lose their minds, you know?
For today's video, I had to consult an expert on being trans to help provide some clarity.
It's me. I'm trans. I'm the expert.
A new Mario Strikers just came out while working on this short video, and I've been on a roll with being tangentially topical lately. Also, it's Pride Month, so let's talk about probably the earliest potentially trans character in video game history, Birdo. And by that I mean let's go over her history, why so many folks consider her a trans icon, and how she compares to a couple of other early trans characters in video games in that same era. To start, this is Birdo. Say hi, Birdo. She first appeared in Super Mario Bros. 2 back in 1988. Here she is shooting eggs out of her mouth. Beautiful. Except, she actually appeared before that. Fun fact you probably never heard on YouTube before. Did you know that Mario 2 isn't actually Mario 2 and Japan got a different Mario 2 and there are floppy disks involved?
Panic.
Next thing you know, I'll start going on about how Sonic wasn't Sega's original mascot. Alex Kidd, good night, sweet prince. The Japanese Mario 2 was held back from being released overseas due to its intense difficulty. Instead, we got a Mario-themed reskin of a game called Doki Doki Panic, which also, by the way, came out in Japan on a floppy disk. That version of the game we got as Mario 2 came out in Japan.
It was a different world, all right? It was the 80s, and I think most people in America were just like way too high on cocaine to notice. So they were just like, hey, I just always accepted Mario 2 as the weird Mario, right? I was just like, this Mario is so different than all the other Marios, you know? You pick up like root vegetables and throw them at other people, and the whole thing turns out to be a dream in the end, and it's a very bizarre Mario. Fun as fuck, hard, but like very bizarre. But yeah, it turns out it was just because Americans wouldn't be able to handle how hard the actual Mario 2 was in Japan.
A year prior, in 1987. Here's Birdo there, once again shooting eggs out of her mouth. Fantastic. What a lot of folks seem to forget is that, like Yoshi, Birdo is a name that refers not just to a character, but also an entire species. For example, there's blue and green and yellow Yoshis, and as we can see in Mario 2, the one that Japan would later get as Super Mario USA, we have pink and red Birdos, and the Game Boy Advance release, even a robotic Birdo. When folks say Birdo is trans, they are specifically referring to this pink Birdo right here, who didn't get her iconic red bow until later on. It's just like how despite there being numerous Yoshis, when people refer to Yoshi singularly, they usually mean the one that Mario rides on in Super Mario World. And in both of these cases, these are also the same characters who appear throughout all the various Mario Kart, Mario Tennis, and other such Mario side adventures together. So where does the idea that Birdo is trans come from? Well, surprisingly, it was never mentioned in-game in any of the classic Mario titles. Instead, this was first put out there in the original American manual for Mario 2. Birdo here, by the way, was also originally incorrectly referred to as Ostro. Fun fact, by the way, a bunch of the classic NES game manuals were released as free PDF.
There's so much content to get angry about here, though.
Technically, in the original Japanese translation.
PDFs online when the NES Classic System launched a few years back, and in that version of the manual, Nintendo actually went back and corrected the name. Anyways, this is what the manual says. And heads up, please excuse the upcoming outdated language. Birdo. He thinks he's a girl and spits eggs from his mouth. He'd rather be called Birdetta. This blurb located between Mario characters such as Fry Guy and Triclide, what classics, gives us two bits of info. One, yes, Birdo is apparently trans, and the manual writer is misgendering her. Second off though, maybe she's also being dead named? I mean, should the character we know as Birdo actually be referred to as Birdetta? Well, if we look at the Japanese manual, we'll see that this name may even be wrong. Also, please excuse Google Translate on my phone. I can't read Japanese. I'm sorry. What Google Translate does get correct, though, is the name she goes by in Japan. Catherine. Yeah, she's actually referred to as Catherine over there, and actually in several other regions as well, including South Korea and in Chinese-speaking regions. I think I like this more than the Western name. We need more Catherines in video games. I need to also mention the reason why Birdo ended up as trans was because of a localization error when bringing over Doki Doki Panic to North America as Mario 2. There's a symbol differentiating the Japanese terms for he and she, and that symbol got left off. So Nintendo of America's localization team, instead of fixing it, just decided to roll with it. And as this was—
Whoa, this happened way before the Great Awakening. This happened long before everything was just, forced gender ideology upon all of us.
The 80s, I wouldn't be surprised if they originally thought of it as a now very poorly aged joke. This was absolutely played as a poor joke though when Mario USA was brought out on the Satellaview game download service in Japan in 1996. Never heard of the Satellaview? It was a service for the Super Nintendo run jointly by Nintendo and radio broadcasting company St. Giga that let you literally download games to your SNES. And in true radio/TV fashion, certain games had certain time slots when you could catch them. It was really unique. Anyway, in both an ad for the game and the Mario USA Satellaview release itself, Birdo is given a deep voice portrayed, in the ad at least, as a stereotypical seductress type. This is not aged well. And speaking of things that haven't aged very gracefully, let's talk about Birdo's trophy entry in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Here, she's referred to as an it and just called a creature of indeterminate gender that some say would rather be called Birdetta. Honestly though, despite this problematic past,
I mean, it's a really random way to look at how society and the Overton window has progressed, but you could track a lot of this just by the way and how Birdo was referred to throughout every different iteration of these games as like, you know, the lore continued to expand.
Thank you so much for watching, everybody. We first want to give a shout out to everyone who makes this show possible. This program is produced thanks to the generous support of our Patreon supporters: Anna Loves Riley, Arian McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbar Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Multimondi, Omni, Peanut Butter Blondie, Political Poppy, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Richard Bomey, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Ruby, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demmel, Travis McClinton, and Words Greenwood. As well as every other person you see on the screen right now, this show would not be possible without them. And if you want to join these wonderful people who make this entire program possible, simply go to patreon.com/theserfs and you can unlock uncensored and bonus episodes and, you know, help us exist.